I know, we've been there, yes.
We get the regional chair seated and we'll be set to go.
Regional chairs here? Or regional council?
Yeah, well,
Oh, people might just think Jim
you may be
Bradley's
chair one day, who knows?
He could be regional chair.
Okay, welcome to the Township of West Lincoln Public Works and Recreation Committee agenda. This is meeting number 2 for Monday, March the 20th. I'm your chair, Mike Rayner. Comments from the public for a matter that is on the agenda may be provided in person by attending the meeting and advising the chair during the request to address an item on the agenda section of the agenda. For those individuals that are unable to attend the meeting in person, you may submit comments for matters that are on the agenda by either emailing jsimi@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Comments submitted will be considered as public information and read into the public record, or by contacting the Clerk's Department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. This meeting will be live streamed. The link to watch the meeting live can be found on the Township's website by selecting the Township Office tab at the top of the website, then clicking the Council or Standing Committee Meetings tab, and scroll down the meeting list to find the link. This meeting will be recorded and will be available to view by clicking the meeting video link found on the Township's website within 48 hours after the meeting, unless otherwise noted. The land acknowledgement statement: the Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattawandurunk, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Massasaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Regional Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wide stewardship of the lands on which we live. For members of committee, is there any change in order of items on the agenda at this time? Seeing none, also members of committee, are there any peculiar interests and/or conflict of interest that you wish to declare at this time? Seeing none, moving to appointments, there are no appointments at this time. Request to address items on the agenda. Note procedural bylaw section 10-13, brackets 5 general rules. 1 hour in total shall be allocated for this section of the agenda, and each individual person shall only be provided with 5 minutes to address their issue, but there are some exceptions that may apply. A response may not be provided, and the matter may be referred to staff. Kevin, are you aware if there are any members of the public who are in attendance virtually on the Zoom meeting call who wish to address a specific item on tonight's Public Works and Recreation Committee agenda as permitted under Section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw?
Not seeing any, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Shimmy, are there received any emails or correspondence from a member of the public prior to 4:30 p.m. today who wished to address a specific item on tonight's Public Works and Recreation Committee agenda as permitted under Section 6.7 of the procedural bylaw?
No, Mr. Chair, there was not.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Consent agenda items. All items listed below are considered to be routine and non-controversial and can be approved by one resolution. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests it, in which case the items will be removed from the consent resolution and considered immediately following adoption of the remaining consent agenda items. Item PW 06-23, consent agenda items. The following items, with the exception of the following. Number 1, West Lincoln Age Friendly Committee WLAFC, meetings of February 3rd, 2023. Number 2, information report number REC-02-2023, Communities in Bloom 2023 Best Garden Selection Contest. Number 3, recommendation report number PW09-2023, appointment of overall responsible operators. And number 4, recommendation report number PW-08-2023, appointment of weed inspectors. Items 1 and 2 are hereby received for information, and items 3 and 4 are hereby received, and the recommendations contained therein be adopted with the exceptions of, do I have any exceptions? I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Chichuk and Madam Mayor, are there any questions relating to these items? Pardon? Oh, yeah, you can't ask on this. That's right, it's very straightforward, sorry. All right, all those in favor? That's fast. Oh, we got to do the computer. We're going to do the slower route tonight.
You made it like the old way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't, I must have a quick Counselor Chi talking. One more time. No, I did not.
So we can do the hands?
If you want for this resolution, I'll just.
All right, it's probably faster.
It'll just take me a minute, I can get there really quick. I could pull a couple items. It's okay. Counselor Chi talked, what did I do?
So you want to just do the hands?
Oh, I got one. Oh, there, I got one.
Oh, I got mine too. Has everybody got theirs?
You know why that's.
I didn't get it yet.
Your new joint teacher? He said I wasn't signed in.
You're not in
I
yet?
support it for what it's worth, so if
Or you want to just do it and we'll just count
Both of
Wayman?
you? Sorry. No, I already voted. Yeah, no, you did. It was Counselor Riley and Raymond.
Yeah, okay.
So the vote is,
All right.
carried.
The vote's carried. Okay, there are no communications tonight. Staff report.
Oh, the thing shows someone absent, so we just want to make sure that that's,
It's gone now.
the thing that came up on the screen. At least it didn't come up in nowhere.
No? Are we good to go? Okay, there are no communications tonight. Staff reports. Item PW 07-23, Project Manager Ray Vachon and Director of Public Works and Recreation Mike DiPaolo. Information report PW-02-2023, Wellandport Community Center Shoreline Enhancement and Protection Project Update. Recommendation that information report PW-02-2023 regarding Wellandport Community Center Shoreline Enhancements and Protection Project Update dated March the 20th, 2023 be received for information. Can I have a mover and seconder on this, please? Councillor Bradrick and Councillor Bell. Any questions from members of committee regarding this? Councillor Bradrick?
Thank you very much, through you, Chair, to Director DiPaolo. And first, a couple of comments. Just very excited to see that this initiative is making its way to more of a public forum. Director DiPaolo and I met at Wellandport Park about almost 2 years ago, and to kind of brainstorm around that beautiful setting and seeing what, if anything, could happen down there for our community. So it's wonderful to see that this report is making its way to council. So to you, Director, I noticed that there's still lots of information yet to come, which is to be expected. There was, I know we had discussed, as well as some residents had, and users of the park had made suggestions around parking and some enhancements to that. Is that something that's still yet to be discussed and has it been brought forward to whoever's doing the proposals?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bradrick. So we worked with the MPCA to put out a procurement call to retain a landscape architect, and they're going to come up with a conceptual plan for this property. Some of the scopes, like the main scope of the project is just some kind of shoreline protection and shoreline enhancements. But in addition to that, there are some other components that we will be looking at. For example, the boat ramp and making improvements to the boat ramp, a dock, maybe some fishing platforms, accessibility, so that they're accessible as well. We're also going to look at facilities for boat rentals, like kayaks and canoe, in case we ever decide to provide that service in the future. So that'll be part of the scope as well. Walking trails, I mentioned fishing platforms. And yes, parking will be looked at as well, and some other opportunities would be maybe some outdoor washroom facilities, but we're not even sure if that's even feasible at this time. But we'll look at all of that as part of this design charrette, as part of this project, and then we'll be reporting back on once we have a conceptual design and construction estimates. Yeah.
Great. One further question. Since the Wellandport Library is on, that adjacent first part of that property, is it possible to, in the future, connect with them, to see if there is a possible, opportunity for connection, be it rentals, maybe they can facilitate that, just to kind of have that in the horizon or for possibilities?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, yeah, of course, that's something we will always review and look at in the future. Right now, we're just looking at
Yeah, of
what
course.
improvements we can make
Yeah.
and then look at the other opportunities that go along with that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Chichuk?
Thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward, and to Councillor Bradrick for the input she made. About 6 years ago, this came forward as well, and there was a bit of a dispute about the ownership lines down either side, with some neighbors saying there was encroachment of our lands onto theirs. Has that been solved now, and everybody's happy before we take the charrette forward? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chichuk, I wasn't aware of any property encroachment or disputes, so we'll definitely look into that as
Okay.
part of this process.
If nobody's complaining, I'm not asking you to do a witch hunt, but I know that this has been an issue. The boat ramps, the boat rentals, the paddle boats, et cetera, had all been a vision that the township had back about 6 years ago, and it's a great idea, and it'd be lovely to have it enhanced. It also needs lighting, because there's a lot of opportunity after dark to cause some damage, which was one of the problems that I remember hearing back at that time. But the big thing was the encroachment of lands and getting the proper line put in place so that no one's going to be all upset once we start anything down there. Sounds great, though, and I'm so glad to hear it coming forward. Thank you.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to our director, still on the same topic, but a slightly different angle in terms of looking at this. Have we heard back regarding the water chestnut extraction that has been impacting that area and what potential implications it could pose moving forward? I guess you could go to either you or the CAO. Sorry.
Through you, Chair to Councillor Riley, I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
And have you heard anything?
I just recall there was a couple of days in the summer where MPCA organized, what's the word, some kind of gathering
I think
excursion.
it was a kind of a 2 to 3 year process, so I just wasn't sure
Yeah.
what can be done or what needs to be brought into consideration before enhancing those shorelines.
Yeah, I haven't heard except for those 2 days in the summer where they were hand pulling out
Okay.
the water chestnuts, but we'll definitely
Okay,
keep an eye on
Thank you.
that, and if that endangered species is encroaching into this area.
okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Endangered species, not endangered species.
Any other members of committee? Seeing none, it's time to vote.
Oh, we voted?
I brought that water chestnut up to Mike this morning, talking about it. Okay? It's unanimous. Thank you. Other business, item PW 08-23, members of council. Other business items of an informative nature. Do we have any? Councillor Chichuk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just thought, oh, God.
I have moved up
What
the
did I do?
ranks.
Well, when you're reading something about a mayor from another municipality, it kind of, your mind goes a little crazy. So you got a compliment there, Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. That was very nice.
But now I think I'll just stick to the way we have the order and that the mayor is sitting to my right.
All right.
There are a lot of tired youth in this township today. They've been spending the weekend representing our township. West Lincoln youth from under 11 to under 16 were participating and representing this township at the Marcy Cook Memorial Hockey Tournament. Marcy Cook succumbed to breast cancer a number of years ago, but was a very active mother in, pardon me, it was in Simcoe and Waterford, and Marcy succumbed to cancer a few years ago, and she was a great hockey mom. And her memory, her family, and the entire town of Simcoe was very receptive to our young kids who played valiantly to support our community in winning in Simcoe and in Waterford. All three categories proceeded forward to the semifinals, with the under-11 group winning the championship for their class and brought home the trophy to West Lincoln. They are extremely tired, but so proud of representing West Lincoln and bringing that trophy home. And they all got little medals, so I must tell you that it was great. I happened to be there for the final game, for a couple of the games, and it's amazing to watch that kind of friendship and that kind of sportsmanship and team building that you saw at that tournament. So to Simcoe, thank you for taking good care of our children and our youth, and thank you for the opportunity that they had to express their talents and spend time with others their age. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out that that's the same team, by the way, that we did the photograph with, that we're raising all of the toys and things for West Lincoln Community Care. So they've won a few things along the way, but they've also done some really good work in terms of being really good reps overall in terms of representing our municipality. They did a wonderful job with that fundraiser. So I just wanted to point that out. I saw on last night a late post that they had won once again another championship, so
Wow.
good for them.
Very impressive. Any other members of the committee have anything right now? How about new items, business? Any new items of business? There is no confidential tonight, so I can adjourn this meeting now at 6:47 PM.
Okay, everybody, welcome to tonight's second portion of tonight's meeting, meeting number 2, Township of West Lincoln Administration Fire Finance Committee meeting. I am your chair, Jason Trombetta. Prior to commencing, comments to the public of the matter of this agenda may be provided in person attending the meeting or advising the chair during the request to address items on the agenda section of the agenda. For those individuals who are unable to attend, you can email jshimmy@westlincoln at 4:30. Comments submitted will be considered at the public to be read into the public for public record, or by contacting the clerk's department to request a Zoom link to attend the meeting virtually. This meeting will be live streamed. Can be found on the township's website by selecting the township tab and scroll down to the link. The meeting is recorded for the township and will be up in 48 hours. So again, I am your chair, Jason Trombetta. Before I get started, reading the land acknowledgement, this is our second meeting of budget this evening. Just note to council, be mindful of your comments, everything through the chair, please. I will be starting from left to right for comments, because last time I started right to left. So I will be starting left to right. And again, please be mindful of, I'll let it go through everyone first, and then I will go back to you. If I have to go back to you 10 times, I'll go back, but I'll wait if there's someone who hasn't spoken that they can speak. And again, please be mindful of staff and comments again through the chair. That'd be great.
How many questions do we get?
You can have first pass. I'd like you to just, you can ask a couple questions in the first pass, but just try to, if it's going on too long, I'd like to go to other people. So hopefully we can do it like we did. I think we did a great job last time, and hopefully we can continue in that manner. So I'll just read the land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in rich history of the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Rock, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara region today. The Township of West Lincoln, as a part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardships of the land on which we live. So, members of committee, is there anybody here to change any items on the agenda? And I have Madam Mayor. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to actually bring a new item of business forward, so that would be moving number
Sure.
11
Okay.
forward.
So I'll need a seconder so the mayor has, okay, I got Councillor Riley to introduce a new item of business. Go ahead, Madam Mayor.
So, thank you. It is actually an item that would need for us to go into confidential. The reason being, it is to discuss a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and also could be included D, which is labor relations and/or employee negotiations.
Okay.
And so I would like for us to be able to do that close to the beginning of the meeting, Mr. Chair. You
okay.
could decide whether you want it after disclosure and before appointments, or after appointments and before request to address items.
To me, I think we can do it now, and then if that's the will of, I'll go to refer to the clerk, actually. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
That's what I should have done first.
Yeah. Sorry, I think we're really jumping quickly here. So we've just introduced to change the order of the agenda.
Correct.
Which was moved by the mayor and seconded by Councillor Riley.
And we didn't vote on that.
We didn't vote on that.
Sorry,
So if we
we
can
are-
vote on that, and then we can go to the new item of business.
It's okay,
Thank
no
you.
problem. So to introduce a new item of business, it was moved by the mayor, seconded by Councillor Riley. All those in favor of the motion to move a new item of business? That's going to be the,
No. Oh, it came up this way. Okay, good.
it didn't come up for me.
Oh, sorry, and I don't see Councillor Riley.
Oh, yes, it did. Yeah, mine's there.
Yours is there, Terry?
Mike's isn't there. Correct. And Terry's isn't there. Terry, are you okay? Yours isn't there, I don't know why. You don't want against it? You're voting against it? Oh, you're going for it?
Is this supposed to go up there? It's not supposed to go up there.
Joanne, you see this?
It doesn't matter, but it's up there. We've never seen that before.
I don't know. Helen?
It's irrelevant in the end. We'll see the vote anyways, but
Okay.
Councillor,
we're going to have to verbally tell them. What's this meeting? No.
I don't know why it's changed.
Well, the vote came in.
It could be because I have to fix it, but it's.
That's fine.
It's unanimous, sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
So that is carried to introduce a new item of business. Madam Mayor, the floor
So
is
then we
yours.
can go back to that. The new item of business is a confidential item, and so we would need to do that.
Okay.
So, at your call, Mr. Chair.
Madam Clerk, what would you prefer us putting this? Would it be fine if we do that before disclosing pecuniary interest? I think it'd be fitting if we do it right now.
After disclosure of pecuniary
You, would you,
interest, I
pref- would you suggest that? That's fine. Whatever is the will of the clerk, we'll do. So, if nobody has a problem with the motion of the mayor, we'll wait till we do disclosure of pecuniary interest and conflict of interest. So moving on to number 4, disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest.
No, he already did it.
I did it already. Yeah.
Yeah, you did. You were writing notes.
We'll get through this night, everybody. So I have Councillor Riley to disclose a pecuniary interest or conflict of interest. Go ahead, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I got 3 perceived conflicts of interest I'd like to disclose at this time. One is going to be when we get into budget, any items related to the library board. My spouse sits on that board, so I'm going to disclose a perceived conflict of interest there, and I'll not take part. The other one's going to be McNally House. As of today, I've just found out that I'm being considered part of their board of directors, so I believe that would put me in a perceived conflict of interest as well, so I'll be removing my voice from that conversation there. So we'll need to vote on that separately as well. As the item regarding Vaughan Road, I've recently come into knowledge that a colleague of mine resides on that road and near what that development's going to be, so I think it's only ethical for myself to excuse myself from that or recuse myself from that conversation there, so.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Riley, for making that noted. Madam Clerk, did you get that okay? Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Riley. So again, we'll have to go back to the Madam Mayor's
So shall I move that we
Confidential.
move into confidential?
yes.
Okay, so I move that we move this meeting into confidential session at the hour of 7:02.
Okay, I need a seconder for that to move into confidential. Councillor Chichuk, all those in favor of the motion to go into confidential? And that carries. Oh, the voting, do we have to do a voting thing, Joe?
Yeah,
Usually confidentials don't.
I'm just,
Yeah.
it's probably faster if you
Yeah.
just.
And so that motion carries. So we will be heading into the little office. Members of the gallery will be right back. Okay, everybody, welcome back. I need a mover and a seconder to come back into open session. Do I have a mover? I got Councillor Broderick, seconder, Councillor Chichuk. We have all those in favor? And that carries. We have a closed session directive. I'll read it to you, that the Director of Finance, Treasurer be hereby directed to increase the hours of the communication specialist to full-time for inclusion in the 2023 township budget. I need a mover for that motion. Councillor Riley, seconded by Madam Mayor. Any comments or questions on the motion? It was Councillor Riley and seconded by Madam Mayor. And don't know if the vote is coming electronically. And we'll go into your pleasure of the motion will be coming right up. It hasn't came up yet. Come on.
He's just trying to log in.
Support. Mike. He can tell me his and we can move on to the next one if you'd like. Councillor, you're supporting the motion with a thumbs up? Got it? Perfect, thank you.
Well, it's already on, so you might have missed it when you logged in. So,
Yep. Councillor Rayner supports as well. Thank you, members of committee. And and it's carried and the board's up. Thank you. Okay. We don't have any appointments this evening. Moving on. So anybody here to request to address any of the items on the agenda? So I'll go virtually, see if Kevin has anybody virtually. Nobody? Anybody in our gallery wants to speak to get in the hand signal? No. So that's no problem. Nobody else? We'll move on to consent agenda items. Item A13-23, a recommendation that Fire Finance Committee approves the following consent agenda items. Number 1 and 2, 3 be hereby received for information, and that items 4, 5, and are hereby received, and the recommendations contained therein adopted, and there are no exceptions yet, so I'll read them. One is the Mayor Youth Advisory Committee, minutes of February 1st, 2023, and updated terms of reference. Information report, number T06-2023, Statement of Remuneration and Expenses for the 2022. Information report, WLFD 04-2023, monthly update, February 2023. The recommendation report, C04-2023, lease agreement for the portion of CIBC parking lot to Ken Brunicioni, Dog Got It, Hot Dog Cart, and recommendation report, WLFD 05-2023, purchase of new tanker apparatus. Anybody want to pull any of those items? Seeing none, I need a mover for those consent agenda items. Councillor Chichuk, seconded by Councillor Broderick. All those in favor of the consent agenda items? Oh, sorry, that would be coming up. Sorry, I'm doing it fast again. I'll get it. I'll slow it down a bit, Joe. Sorry. Mine? I'm there. If anybody doesn't come up, just nod to me if it's Councillor Rayner is raised his hand, is in favor. Is that everybody? Okay. And that motion carries. Moving on to communications, Jody Beamer, request for bylaw amendment to bylaw to address livestock running at a large. The recommendation that the correspondence received by Jody Beamer dated January 17th, 2023, formally requesting that a bylaw be enacted to address livestock running at a large and causing property damage and or risk of the community be received and referred to staff for report and recommendation. So I need a mover for that motion. Madam Mayor, seconded by Councillor Bell, comments or question on this motion about livestock? Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is not the first time we've heard about this, although this is the first I've seen from Mrs. Beamer. Her husband, Jason Beamer, has reached out to me a couple of...
Before I go to Brian, anybody else like to comment on this? I hope staff can come up with something. I don't know, I grew up on a sheep farm, and the sheep would always break through the fence, and, you know, we'd have 50 to 100 sheep roaming around neighboring properties. Yeah, you can say shepherdless, that's true, because we had to go get them. So, Brian, if you want to just add some comments to this before we carry the motion.
Sure, through you, Mr. Chair. The bylaw officer, Jesse, was able to find another means by which to assist the complainant with the roaming at large livestock, but ultimately we need to add some provisions about large livestock to our existing, I think it would probably be the dog bylaw will get revised.
Okay.
So that's a project to embark upon, but we were able to help Mr. Beamer in the meantime.
Okay, and that'll be coming, obviously, once it's done, we'll come back at a later date at an administration meeting, I guess, in the future.
I would think, yes.
Okay. Councillor Chichuk?
I presume that we are still going to be reasonable with this. I mean, people have issues, like a
Hole in the fence.
car ran through, yes, 100 feet of our fence, and in the middle of winter, it was hard to put posts in. But, you know, I presume this is for regular, repeated, unfixed fences.
Correct.
Where owners are responsible to keep the fences. But, I mean, goodness gracious, we thrive on livestock. There's more cows and sheep in this municipality than there are people.
Correct.
So,
I think when the motion does come back, we can have a fulsome conversation amongst ourselves with the motion that Brian brings back to us, and we can really talk about all the holes and missing posts in all our fences that we have out there.
very good.
Okay.
We'll do a post-review.
Yeah.
A
Thank you.
fulsome review.
Okay. Seeing no other comments or questions, I'll call the vote to this go back to staff. All those in favor? Oh, it's open. Sorry.
Yeah, he's all over that. Doesn't waste any time.
Oh, did you come up? Then, oh, Terry's in favor. Okay.
Use the computers.
Okay. That all good, Madam Clerk? Yes. Great. Okay. Now we have another one. We're coming item A1523. So we have Stephanie DiBartolo, Wendy Chandler, Dana Godet, Sarah Young, and Rebecca Nagy. The delivery of a graphic image of a flyer. We have a recommendation that the correspondence received from Stephanie DiBartolo, Wendy Chandler, Dana Godet, Sarah Young, and Rebecca Nagy regarding the delivery of a graphic image flyer to their homes, and that the Township of West Lincoln address this matter from further occurrences by adopting a bylaw similar to a bylaw adopted by the City of London requiring materials with graphic imagery to be delivered in an envelope bearing a warning be received, and that this matter be referred to staff to report on and a recommendation. So I got it moved by Councillor Chichuk, seconded by Councillor Bradrick. I'll open the floor for comments or questions on this, if there's any. Councillor Riley?
So I'll just make a couple brief comments there. Just the other week there, I had a couple constituents reach out to myself. I think Madam Mayor was included in that conversation as well. And then if you read tonight's report, you kind of got an idea of what's been going on in the community. And one thing I'll mention is even the members that had reached out acknowledged the importance of freedom of expression and in terms of being able to ensure people don't feel censored. I think the expectation here or the request is just a little bit a practice that helps prevent help prevent the psychological trauma that can be caused to young children who come across some of these more graphic images, real, life-changing images. And so what I mean by that is this information, the stuff that was kind of being displayed there was very disturbing. But they're also a reality that many people face. So I think what's being asked here is just to see if the people who are putting this information out, any information, not even just related to this, to be able to do so in a way that ensures that it's seen by a mature audience and not an adolescent audience. So I don't think this is a big ask for council to ask staff to report back on to see what can be adopted. We see other cities and other cities and townships, kind of doing their own thing. I think St. Catharines was just in the Standard not too long ago about reviewing this very thing as well, so this is becoming a more common thing. So I applaud the community for making the effort to kind of share their concerns and their experiences here, and then trying to make the change for the better good.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Chichuk?
I don't disagree with anything Councillor Valier said. I just want to make sure that we are seen by all people out there, that we are not in any way trying to reduce the freedom of expression or of reading. I can't watch television anymore without seeing a flash that comes up before the show starts and after every commercial that it says this show may have graphic pictures or voice or words or whatever. So it gives you the choice. It gives you the choice to watch the show, listen to the show, or fall asleep. So that's what we're doing here, is we're saying, if you want to share it, you can share it, and then I have a choice to look at it or not. So that's what we're doing to prevent all of those other issues, the psychological trauma and the life-changing images, et cetera. But those issues are not, they're there for people who want to see them, but shouldn't be there for people who don't.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. Councillor Bell?
I agree with what's been said. Freedom of speech, not an issue. Freedom of graphics, that's what we got to really deal with. It's the graphics that's in this folder that was handed out. That's what you don't want a kid seeing. So the speech, that's not a problem because parents will deal with that. They can talk to the kids. It's the graphics. And that, I think, has to be part of our bylaw that deals with the graphics, that they're not going to be tolerated. So.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Roderick?
Just a quick add-on, Chair. Certainly we want to protect children. We've all, a few of us have mentioned that already, but also it could be a trigger for other individuals. Those that have suffered pregnancy loss, this could be a trigger for them as well too. So I do want to acknowledge that it's to protect the entire community and children included.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Anybody else? Councillor Rayner, anybody else? Okay. Okay, so this is to be referred back to staff to report back and for a recommendation. All those in favor of this? Oh, sorry, this is the voting thing. Sorry. I gotta get used to that. And that carries. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Okay, moving on to item 16-23, Mr. Gord Davis, comments regarding proposed amendments to the council remuneration bylaw. Recommendation that the correspondence received by Gord Davis, Caser Center, dated March 9, 2023, regarding council remuneration, which provides information and requests Township Council to adopt the following two resolutions. That staff be directed to draft a bylaw to standardize the process to adjust council members' compensation, and that staff be directed to prepare a report detailing an increase in taxes needed to increase salaries to treat all the township employees equally, or alternatively, the reasons why the township policy does not apply to the council positions. So, and it's down there, and be received for information. So I need a mover for that. And seconder, don't see, sorry, there's no mover or no seconder. So at this moment, we've had no mover or seconder. Okay. I was waiting for hands. I didn't see any. I wasn't pushing it along. I was waiting, everybody. I wasn't pushing it along. I was waiting and looking. So I have a mover now, Councillor Chichuk. I have a seconder, Madam Mayor.
So this is just for information? Why not see that?
I think I'm gonna make a comment to this. So, sorry, if no one else makes a comment first, I can make a comment to this. I've been in council for a while, and I usually request that come from a citizen. Usually doesn't come as a recommendation to committee. So, may I ask to the CA or the clerk, how come it came as a recommendation to committee? Madam Clerk? Because I'm just saying, we might get 300 recommendations and then putting on the report, right? So,
No, I understand. It came as correspondence, and part of his correspondence provided those recommendations. So we're accepting his correspondence and the recommendations that he provided, but they're only there for information. So anybody that writes in, we do forward their correspondence, like we did the other five individuals with respect to the graphic imagery. And this was exactly the same. The gentleman
Okay.
sent his resolution in, and as part of this process, the budget meeting was advertised, and it is open for people to come and voice their, council remuneration was advertised. It has to be a public meeting, and people can provide their comments, and that's what Mr. Davis was doing. And as part of his comments, he suggested some recommendations on how to make this process.
okay.
Okay, so that's why it was on the agenda, and that's because it is a public process.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Chair, if I may, just to be clear, assuming Mr. Davis at home is watching, that supporting to receive it for information actually is not creating an action to actually go with the recommendation. It's just receiving it for information only. So just other members of council, whether you support it or not, is irrelevant. We're just receiving that. We're acknowledging that we received that correspondence.
Okay. So your screen should pop up in front of you. And that carries. Okay. Moving on. Staff reports, item A17-23, Administrative Assistant Justin Palev and Deputy Clerk Jessica Dyson and Director of Legal Services Joanne Shime. Recommendation report number C02-2023, Delivery of Graphic Images Bylaw. Recommendation report that's C02-2023 regarding the delivery of graphic materials in the Township of West Lincoln dated March 25th, 2023 be received, and that a draft bylaw attached in Scheduled A to this report be presented for consideration at the March 27th, 2023 council meeting, and that a bylaw 2021-84 being a bylaw to establish a system of administrative penalties for non-parking offenses within the Township of West Lincoln be amended to include Schedule A as a new schedule to establish the fines for contravening the delivery of graphic images bylaw, and that the proposed amended to the Township sign bylaw 2020-54 as amended, as outlined in Schedule B attached to this report be approved, and that the amending bylaw be presented at the March 27th council meeting, and that staff provide notice with respect to the Township graphic materials bylaw and amendment to the Township sign bylaw on the Township's website and social media, as well as provide notice to any local flyer delivery business. I need a mover. Councillor Bell, Madam Mayor, comments or questions on this? Councillor Riley? Oh, Councillor Chichuk, sorry.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So just a thank you to staff for the quick action in this very important issue that was brought to all of our attentions just a little over a week and a half ago. As we had all described a little earlier in our meeting, those disturbing images were definitely could be harmful to a portion of our population, and I think that this bylaw appears as though it will work towards protecting some of those individuals by enclosing the flyers in an envelope and with a clear warning on the outside to allow those that are still wanting or willing to open that there may be some graphic images inside. I think that balances out the ability to still distribute information to the community, so that we're not looking at an outright ban of specific information that could potentially, trigger some type of legal situations for the township. So I think I just had comments, no particular questions. Thank you.
It's the time, perfect. Councillor Chichuk.
I just had one comment. It was that we are depending on website and social media, and should this thing that is so important be in the paper, so that a lot of people have commented on this, and I know there's been some chatter on the various media platforms, but is there a need for us to talk to the people who don't use those platforms?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you for your comment, Councillor Chichak, and through you, Mr. Chair. The suggestion was made perhaps that we could do a media release as well, which would be sent to the local newspapers, hoping that they would pick up a newspaper article on the matter, since it has been an issue in other areas, and very local areas, being the city of Hamilton and the city of St. Catharines. So we could suggest to putting a media release and hoping the newspapers do pick it up. But if that's advertising is very expensive, so we try and use methods of dealing with it. And I'd hope that the newspapers, the local papers, would pick this up. They do, I believe, watch our meetings and reach out to us when they want comments.
Through
to
Mr.
the
Chair.
CAO.
Yeah, the floor is still yours, Madam.
I understand completely. Prudence of West Lincoln has never ceased to amaze me, and I appreciate your efforts. And if it's going to go out in a media release in the morning, let's hope that the papers pick it up. If they don't, after council next week, when this goes to council, I would expect that it would show up in a paper as well.
Yeah, it would most likely, through you, Mr. Chair. Again.
The group that I'm thinking may be most violated by, not most violated, but the age group that may not go on to social media platforms would read the paper. So I just want to make sure we reach everyone at the same time to try and make sure that they know we're acting on that, because the comments I'm hearing are from our more mature residents.
And to clarify, it would be after council next week, as this item would need to be ratified by council and the bylaw would be presented at that time.
Excellent. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Riley.
Okay, thank you. I guess kind of to echo Councillor Chichak's concerns or ideas. I kind of was wondering the same, how we're going to get the information out there. And so I have a couple of questions before I come back to this one. And one through you, maybe to our Director of Planning, who could speak to the penalties. And am I to assume, when I see, we're seeing anywhere between $350 to $700, is that per flyer, or is that per offense, meaning they put it out in the mail and it went out once and went out to 3,500 homes? Am I to assume that $350 could be charged 3,500 times if they made it 3,500 homes, or is it just $350 and then they kind of understand that they can't send it out again?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's per offense. So it would be a ticketable offense each time they were caught in the act of delivery with proof.
With proof, okay,
Yeah.
so you actually have to catch them actually hand delivering. Because the other question I had through you, Mr. Chair, was I am assuming these people are going to be able to put it in an envelope and want to stop someone from taking it out of an envelope and making that accusation that it wasn't, and and it can kind of work both sides there. So I wanted to verify that. The other question I have is sometimes we put information out in when the property tax or the water bill goes out there, and I'm wondering if there's an opportunity there we can print a little bit of blurb about, just so you know, because we know what's going to happen. Somebody's going to get a ticket at some point, and they're going to say, I did not know, and they honestly are probably not going to know. There's a lot of things that we do at council that doesn't always make it to everyone's footsteps, or at least not when they require it. It's usually when they've already done wrong and they didn't realize that rule existed. So I just wanted to float that out there, that maybe that could also be part of some messaging that sometimes we put out, if that could be included, just to help kind of bring awareness to it. Because the last thing we want to do is, if it's done innocently and unintentionally, we certainly don't want to penalize people, but we do want to change the way how this goes. And it's more of a disclaimer. This certainly isn't saying you can't do it. We're just asking to be mindful on how this gets out there, so that you can, like Councilor Chichak said, you can kind of be prepared. I'm going to open this up because I actually am interested in wanting this, versus, someone's 5-year-old who runs up to the door after school and they see this, and now mom and dad have to spend the rest of the night trying to explain what it is they saw and helping bring them back from that. So anyways, that's all my questions and comments.
I just had, anybody else before? I just had one question to Mr. Director. The fine is $350, but usually, like when I was seeing through social media and stuff, if someone is underage and they're delivering a flyer, how is that fine imposed?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this The 350 is the ticketable offense, and it's really not dependent on age. It's if you're caught in the act of delivery with proof, then you're liable to that fine as a violation of our bylaw. Repeat offenders, we could certainly take to the next level and go to provincial offenses, where the fines are much larger as well. I'm not aware, though, that we would treat age any differently. POA might very well do that, but our bylaw doesn't really consider a difference.
Okay, sorry, I think I'm up. Councillor Bell. Thank you, Brian.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Trouble. When you say caught in the act with proof, what is proof?
I've had some discussions with legal counsel, and it's obviously something that we'll have to try and experiment and see what actually sticks. In his mind, even an affidavit from the owner saying, I received this from Joe Blow on this date at this time with, evidence of what they received, probably is adequate enough. Doorbell camera footage would be another clear option. As long as we can identify the individual, then any of those kind of approaches, cameras in the area, any of that.
For me, you need to keep it simple for the residents when you talk about proof. I really don't see a lot of them going out and doing an affidavit and say, I've seen these kids delivering these, because that's who was in our neighborhoods, was young people. Maybe 18 at the tops, but in the 14 to 16 range. And they were just going door to door, putting them in there. So I think we just need to keep it simple when we talk about proof, picture of them,
Mr. Director, go ahead.
Yeah, there's sort of two levels to this in my mind. We've got the administrative penalty, and catching them in the act and issuing a ticket for 350 is one thing. If we end up going the Provincial Offences Act into court, the threshold for proof will be quite high, and the burden will be on us to prove that they are the ones that were doing the deliveries. So as much as keeping it simple makes sense, and for a ticket purpose, perhaps that would work, it probably won't work if we end up in provincial court.
It's simple, but it sounds very complicated, because I call you and I say the next day, hey, listen, here's a picture of these kids that delivered these to my door. Now we're into he said, she said, they said. I got to be honest with you. We just need a bylaw that simply says you cannot distribute pornographic literature in this community. And that is simple in my mind.
Okay. Brian, do you want to comment at all?
I thought I heard him say pornographic. This specifically is about fetuses and nothing else.
Okay, so
So
I'll change my wording then. Any kind of graphics. I mean, that is not something I want my grandkids to see.
That's not the bylaw you have before you.
No.
Just
Okay, so, Madam Clerk, did you want to add something?
Yes, I just wanted to let you know that the City of London went back and forth with this bylaw and were challenged a number of times. They had to make it very specific because they lost in court. So they had a lot of ups and downs with this whole matter. And basically, the bylaw had to be very precise, and that's why we copied basically the London bylaw, because it referred specifically to fetuses. If you get too broad, it becomes very hard to prove in court and get a conviction. So that's why it is very specific in the fact of naming fetus.
I have Director, and then I'll go back to you, Terry, and then I got the Mayor.
Just really quickly, Mr. Chair, the other issue that we have to deal with, as you guys have already alluded to earlier, is the right to a person's freedom of speech. And it's clear from reading the materials that people have a right to freedom of speech, and as I said to our CIO, even if it's offensive, they still have that right. So we have to tread a very fine line.
Okay. Councillor Bell?
So I think we need to look at the London one. I remember scanning through it. I didn't get very specific with it. But it does deal with what we're
Your mic's off, Terry. There we go.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So I think we need to look at the London one and deal with this issue, this specific issue right now, because this isn't the first time that it's been in our community. It seems like it comes about every spring. For some reason, it pops up and it's there. So I like the idea of incorporating some of London's literature into this bylaw.
Madam Clerk? Sorry, Madam Mayor, I still have you, but go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Bell. The bylaw that we have provided with our report does mimic basically the City of London's. We made it a bit stronger. We vetted it through our legal counsel. They thought it was a very good bylaw, so we're very confident about it, the bylaw. The other issue is we cannot, and Brian's gone through this before with other bylaws, we cannot prohibit. You probably heard Sarah Premy say that a number of times, but we can regulate. And that's where this comes in about this freedom of speech, that, you know, these flyers can go out, but as long as they're in a sealed envelope with a warning on the envelope and they have a name and address of who has produced these flyers.
Okay.
Agree.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Treble, I was really happy. I think I heard you say that doorbell cams and those kinds of things would be sufficient proof. A lot of people have that kind of security system now. So if they have clear images of somebody delivering something to their home that is not in an envelope, and then they pick up whatever that is, that you think would be sufficient for some kind of...
Through you, Mr. Chair, discussions that I've had with legal counsel and my bylaw officer appear to suggest that that would be adequate, yes.
Okay.
So doorbell footage through a doorbell camera or a camera mounted on the corner of the house or something, as long as the faces are clear, should be a good place to start from.
And that is the kind of image that was being sent to us when people were showing us what they were getting and who had delivered. And so that's encouraging to know then that that's sufficient. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Riley.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to our CEO, when it comes to reporting, could this be put on the report of concern as an option? Because I'm just trying to figure out how do we simplify the reporting aspect. I think it's what Councillor Bell was more or less alluding to in helping people understand where to go and what form they could use, and could this just be an extra category within that?
Director?
No, I said CEO.
Oh, CAO, sorry, Madam CAO, sorry.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Riley, can I ask the Director to respond?
Sure. Sorry, I wasn't sure who to put it through.
Thank you. As I think I said the night that we had the good governance session, it's important from our bylaw officer's point of view that we are consistent in our method of complaining. And even if complaints come through councillors, it's best to send them to the report of concern page. So I would agree with the advice of Councillor Riley. Send them there, and then our bylaw officer can take it from there.
Perfect. So hopefully, if we have media watching tonight, they can really help emphasize that opportunity in terms of how to make it accessible to people. Because again, that's going to be a common question in the future.
Great, thanks, Councillor Riley. Seeing no other questions, the screen should pop up for you guys right now. Terry is in favor as well. Excellent. Okay, members of committee, the next two items, that's what I said from the beginning. I'll start when there's comments from my left to the right. I made a promise, and I made a promise last time I chaired this meeting, so that I should start from the left to the right. That's just my decision. Anyways, I know there's a rebuttal over there, but I'll continue on. Item A18-23, Director of Finance Treasurer Donna DeFilippis, Recommendation Report T05-2023, Elected Officials Remuneration. 1, that the Recommendation Report T05-2023 regarding elected officials remuneration dated March 20th, 2023 be received, and that Council is presented with the two options regarding Council remuneration. Option 1, which is a 2023 remuneration of $30,000, and Option 2, which is a phased-in option, which will result in a 2023 remuneration of $23,000 $900, and that council approve either option 1 or option 2 for inclusion in the 2023 township budget, and that a bylaw be presented at the March 27th, 2023 council meeting to address council remuneration based on the recommendation passed. Need a mover for that? Councillor Rayner, seconded. Councillor Bell. Comments or questions? Starting, I was going to start, so there's nobody from my left, so I'll start from my right. Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In order to simplify this and hopefully save some time, I've put together a resolution. I'd like the clerk to read it, please.
Okay.
It would be a focal point for discussion.
Okay. Madam Clerk, you're aware of the resolution? I think it was... Okay.
Thank you.
So Councillor Rayner's amendment to report RFDT 0523 is as follows. That recommendation 3 of report number RFDT 05-2023, elected official remuneration, be amended by removing the words, so this is recommendation 3, removing the words either before the words option 1, and remove the words or option 2, and that the following additional recommendations be added following recommendation 3 to read as follows. 4, that the annual salary for the mayor of West Lincoln be increased to $47,000. 5, that the new salary remuneration for members of council as approved take effect on January 1st, 2023. And 6, that the new council remuneration and expense allowance bylaw include a provision that each member of council can choose to opt out of the new remuneration for the duration of the term of this council by advising the clerk in writing by April 15th. And number 3, that that recommendation 4 of report number RFDT 05-2023 be renumbered accordingly to include the above noted recommendations.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Did members of committee have that in front of them to review if they did on their agenda, or they need some more time to?
I have to put it to.
Are you saying no, that you don't have that?
I don't have it in yet, no.
So can we, would it be too much to get these, maybe a couple of these printed real quick to members of council if they want to review this? Thank you.
Oh, I don't know, is it on that one?
Yes, it is. You do
Okay.
have the amendment on this.
Okay, thanks.
So yes, can we print 7 copies for that? Yeah. Just please bear with us. We can get that printed, and members of council, they can review it. It is easier in the paper form to look at it, so. I haven't. Wait till Councilor Chicha comes back, and then I'll ask for the seconder. It's, to be honest with you, in reading it that way, or if I had it here, it's easier to kind of skim through it. It does make more on the paper.
I don't know if I opened it. Hold on. Let me see
Your
if
mic's
I
on,
can
Counselor.
open it.
I think he probably still wants to speak.
Well, he's going to.
No,
Okay,
I just wanted that
you can
resolution.
see
You can
it.
go from left to right like you wanted to, Jason.
What's wrong? Oh. Are you signed in properly? You're signed in? You're signed in?
CAO's mic's on? Joanne, your microphone's on. Sorry, the clerk's.
I'm gonna have to close the vote to do that.
Do that. You close that, and I need a seconder for that, and then I'll ask to open it up to questions once the papers, they have a chance to review it.
Oh, I see.
And then we'll wait for Councillor Chichuk to come back. That came up at the same time. Thank you, Madam CAO.
Those against the green teams.
Just don't trip on my stuff. I know.
Okay, members of committee, Councillor Rayner did have a motion, so I need a seconder for that motion. Councillor Bell. I'll open up for comments or questions. I'll give you a chance to read it real quickly, and then I'll open it up for comments or questions. Well, I got to wait for Councillor Chichuk and the CAO to come back as well. There she is. And now we lost Madam CAO. That's the plan, but you ruined, you didn't like it at the beginning, but that was my plan for the individual.
What's that?
I'm going to start left to right.
Oh, I see. No, I don't think anyone's spoken.
No. Would you like to wait for them CAO to come back? We should. Still live, right? Yeah, just members of the gallery and public, we're just waiting for our CAO to return back and we'll continue. Absolutely. Okay, members of committee, we're back. We did have a mover for this amendment, was moved by Councillor Rayner. It was seconded by Councillor Bell. So I'm going to turn to the gallery for comments and questions. I'll start to my left. Councillor Bell, anything? No? Councillor Bradrick? You're reserved right now? Madam Mayor? Councillor Riley?
Yeah, I guess maybe I'll put in a couple words here. I think we're going to reflect a little bit here. And so in terms of what we did last term of council, we had this come up twice. Both times, if people remember, council voted for status quo. We did not put in a raise. I know comments that were made at committee reference some of the public perspective of what we earn versus what we do, and I think it was Councillor Bell who gave us a more detailed breakdown of what it worked out to be hourly, which put us kind of below minimum wage. What I think is proposed here is a more of a respectable amount of money in terms of what we currently get paid versus what we could get paid. But the one thing I'll mention that I think I mentioned then too is public opinion is always going to be that, you know, council trying to pay themselves needs to be a conflict of interest and this and that, and I don't think you're ever going to win. It's never a good time to talk about remuneration, compensation, and stuff like that, but I think if we look a little bit broader, and I mentioned before, I have no intention of being a career politician myself, and so when I look at the broader sense of what the leadership of the organization needs to include, and certainly that we're looking at a future generations of leadership, I certainly don't think this is a very difficult ask. It's certainly going to, you know, I'm sure we'll get some emails, we'll get some phone calls, but I at the same time, I think it can be justified how hard we work and how much we put ourselves out there for our community. I know myself, I try to go above and beyond every which way I can, and I think a lot of my constituents would agree with that. But at the same time, I also know that no one really is necessarily concerned about how little we get paid, and, you know, and anytime we have to put up the tax base a little bit to compensate ourselves, it's going to, you know, bring into question there. So as of right now, I have no issue with this. I think I like the fact that the mayor is included in this and brought up approximately in the same capacity of members of council, so it looks consistent in that respect. And yeah, I welcome this. I look forward to seeing how the rest of the conversation goes. One last thing I'll mention is even with option one, I've kind of been of the opinion, I think as I was like looking at this, even preparing for today's meeting, you know, it's something that has the potential of being a punching bag year after year, even if there's abilities of putting it in the the future, levies in terms of having it a little bit more on the quieter side because it doesn't come front and center, but it still leaves the room for opportunity for other members of council who disagree with it to just bring it up on an annual basis. I'm kind of the opinion you either support it in whole or you don't bother at all. I also think it's appropriate to have the opt-out option, and I think it's important for those who truly don't support it that if they choose to opt out, that they stand by it, because again, it's a little. I think it's unfair to the community if you were to oppose something and then opt out and then 2 or 3 months later have a change of heart. To me, that's always been a lack of transparency, and I'm a strong advocate for transparency, so I have no problem addressing it from that perspective. So at this point, I think those are all my comments for now. I'll see how the conversation goes, and I might chime in a few more.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I'll just see if, Councillor Chichak, did you like to weigh in before I go to the other side? Okay, Councillor Rayner. Your microphone. And then I'll go to Councillor Bell or.
Thank you. Yes, I've put this together trying to be fair. Being the longest running councillor, I can tell you that the amount of workload from 15 years ago to now is increased fivefold at least. Compensation towards that has not occurred. But consequently, over the years, we have had numerous staff increases in order to keep them at a level that is worthy of the amount of work that they do. But it's never reflected back on council. And I think it's time. It's been a long, long time. And I realize out there the public always has concern about doing something like this. We're the only ones that can do it. We don't have another authority to go to like staff does. They come to us, or we go out to the region, or we have some outside consultants or whatever the case. But in our particular case here, it's what we feel the situation is worth. And I know people out there would respect the fact that nobody wants to work for nothing. The hours sometimes can be very long. The amount of paperwork, the amount of meetings, all those things add up, that it does consume a lot, and it is at times stressful. The thing about this that I think is most important is it reflects a fair base. And I've asked a number of councillors over the years how much time they spend, and they said, just like Councillor Riley said, if you work it out on the hourly basis, I'm below minimum wage. The thing that's important to me, and I've said it before in the past, is we want to get to a level also that encourages other people down the road in further elections that they would be interested. I know MPs and MPPs are well compensated. There are doctors and lawyers who give up their profession to go into politics because they want the political aspect. They want to contribute, but they also realize that the remuneration is not a penalty for them to do that. And I would like to see the same situation here, where there's opportunities for people who have a lot to bring to the table, realizing what we have to go through and saying, you know, it's not worth it. And that's exactly what happened right after the election, October 24th. Within a week or so, I'm walking down Caister Centre with my dogs, and people stop and they said, well, we voted for you, Mike, congratulations, you're back in, but I really don't know why you want to do it. And the other fact is, as I said before, we have 15,000 people in this township, and only 15 people put their name in. So and if the 15 people didn't put their name in, how would you be able to run the township? Like, it's bare bones, almost the number of people that applied to do this job, because it's not a job that's exciting that a lot of people want to do. But it's easy to sit back and be critical and say, oh yeah, well, you just put yourself a raise. Well, you had the opportunity to do the same thing. You could have knocked on doors and done this, but you took the easy way out. So this situation, we're here because we care. We're here because we take pride in what we do. We're here because we want the future of this township to be solid, and we want to be a part of it. But in all fairness, like you would do in your own job, you would like to be adequately remunerated for the effort and work you put in. And that's all this is. This is not asking for a fortune. There are some positions in this township and staff that there was one job 15 years ago, and now that same job is done by 2 people at 3 times the wages. We didn't double the amount of councillors here. We didn't triple our wage that we're asking here, because our workload has gone up, like I said, 5 times. We have not been compensated, though we've made sure that people that report to us have been compensated. But the only people who can compensate us are ourselves, and it's always an uncomfortable situation that most councils have not done because they don't feel comfortable doing it. But there has to be a time when you have to be fair and say, look, this is going on long enough. Let's make it proper, let's make it fair, and let's give people in the future an opportunity to also want to do this job, because the remuneration is at least more respective of the responsibility that comes with the position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bell.
the only thing I'd like to see added here is that every year, the remuneration goes up in accordance with salary remuneration. So if they get a 1% increase, council gets a 1% increase. If it's 2%, we get the same increase. Basically what we have right now, the same idea. You just don't want to lose sight of that, because we don't want to come back and do this again in 3 years, 5 years, or 10 years even. It's coming up to a level that's fair, and it needs to be maintained at that going forward. So.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you, Chair. So when this came to us first at the last meeting, I was the first to say I opposed any kind of large increase that was being discussed and had pushed out the option of a phase-in. With this, currently that's on the floor, that option has been taken away. So during this past few weeks, I've had the chance to kind of reflect back on the increase, and I'm certainly never shy away from the opportunity to say that perhaps my immediate comments were different than what I feel today. And that is because I thought a lot about that succession planning. So good leadership really supports succession planning, and although this type of organization and these types of jobs is different than a succession plan for our CAO or our clerk, but we still have a responsibility about looking at how can we help support the future of the council positions. And one of that is the remuneration, because like Councillor Rayner just spoke about so eloquently, that that really has not been addressed over many years. And although we do fit in that 50% medium where we're in our neighboring municipalities, it doesn't mean that that is really the correct amount. And I am a rural ward representative, and my workload is probably nowhere near what the urban councillors put in, but I do put in a lot of hours, even if it's just the meetings sitting around this horseshoe, and besides the other responsibilities that come with it. So I do retract what I said at a previous meeting, and I will support this recommendation.
Okay. Anybody else? Sorry, I didn't know if Madam Mayor had her hand up. No, sorry. There. Oh.
She's on the left.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, did you have, I didn't know if you
No,
want,
I
wanted to give preference
You
to the
were
left
working your
side.
way around, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to speak. I have to say that I have a really hard time with this as well, because I think that we're looking at not ever a good time to look at any of these situations. This is a little different than I saw this afternoon, and I appreciate that difference. I will say, though, that unless some other things have changed in other municipalities in Niagara, we have closed the gap between what councillors are paid and what mayors are paid on a percentage basis. This afternoon, it looked like we had jumped from being 55%, councillors being paid 55% of the rate that the mayor is paid. This takes it closer to 60-some-odd%, but the amount this afternoon that was being tossed around made it closer to 80%. And I was very fearful of that, not for my position as mayor, but any mayor moving forward. That gap would not ever be closed again. And therefore, if you're talking about who's going to look to ever run as a councillor again, that same thing would be true of whoever would ever decide to campaign in the whole of the municipality and put themselves out there to actually do this job, which is certainly a half and a half, or probably add up to more than a full in terms of what's expected if you're doing this job properly. So I do appreciate that somehow this afternoon that number changed. Those who were involved in that, I appreciate that you thought about that. It still is not appropriate compared to where the others are, but it certainly is far better than it was. So thank you.
You for that acknowledgement, Madam Mayor, and those points. Appreciated. Councillor Chichuk. Heavy breath there.
You're right, a very heavy breath. It's due to the kind of intensity and review that we we do hold ourselves to as a municipality. And I have been troubled by this. As I told you, my first troubling issue is that a number of years ago, when the 30% was removed, that was tax-free.
I was there.
Yes, I was there, and I actually got a pay cut. And it was probably about $3,200 a year, and it depends on what tax bracket you're in, but if I use an average one on that, it really knocked us back to a whole term of council on the 1 or 2% that we were getting. Well, actually, 2 terms of council. So it's always, and I think I said it at the time, it's always bugged me. And it has bugged me, because to the point that everyone seems to be making is that a succession plan where younger people, they may not be able to start into a political career until they have children that are not necessarily at home, or their wife is home, and there's, or husband, sorry. Significant other is at home and able to give them the freedom to put in the time that it does take to do this job. And having returned to council, I guess my mind has slipped and I didn't realize, or the renewed amount of intensity that we have undertaken since the election has certainly even surprised me. But when I look back to the terms of council I sat on before, where we had 27 meetings for wind turbines, and they were held largely in the auditorium, high school, because, when it was a high school, because there was a great divergence of opinion on what, and the role that a council played. We listened. We listened to every one of those people over and over again, and probably caused them more pain rather than closing it down. And we listened afterwards, and we got on committees that shared the issues for the province. And maybe we don't talk about those kind of things, but the reality is that then after that, I know that last term council put a lot of time into understanding growth principles, only to have them change 3 or 4 times, and about to change in April again, according to what the province is murmuring. Those policies, and I am not for one instant dismissing the amount of work and the intensity this is put on our consultants, our staff, maybe our staff, our consultants, our legal team. It is being truly unjust. And the trickle-down effect that is coming from the province on the development charges being moved away, we just have to listen more and pay more attention to what we have responsibility for, because there's all the issues coming to West Lincoln. The growth, the intensity, the intensification, the roads, and still keeping our rural character and keeping our constituents comfortable, as well as looking at finding more people who will run for the offices, and even the chairs or the voluntary roles that we have. We get very few people coming forward. So if this is one of the ways that it should happen, we need to consider it. I noticed that the City of Hamilton is looking at time limits on meetings because their new councillors who are younger are looking for childcare assistance, and the fact that they have to get home to their families. It's not unusual for this council to sit late or come back a second day or a third if necessary. So, and I'm not by any means discrediting the work that staff did in doing the review. It was onerous, it was well done. It is not something I would ever like to see staff put into the juxtaposition, because no matter what you say or do, it won't make everybody happy. So it should be done, these kinds of reviews should be done by an external group, because then we can all hate the same person, which we don't want to. But I did support the phasing in because I did want to see the tax-free amount coming back in. I do know we can protect for the future years of this term without having it brought back, because we can put that into the bylaw. I also understand that the group around this horseshoe are struggling with the fact that they've felt undervalued for some for a very long time, and for others a shorter time, but still wanting to make the compensation reflective of the amount of time they've been putting in, but also what they will be putting in. And I understand that the gap between the mayor and councilors is sufficiently so that if you put a 2% increase onto the mayor's salary, that gap that you are trying to close will expand exponentially as you go on year after year. Maybe that's right. That person spends a heck of a lot of time shaking hands and is in this office far more than we are. And I noticed that the recommendation that's before us tonight keeps the gap at exactly the same dollar amount. So if every year there is an increase because of cost of living, there will be a little bit more in the mayor's paycheck, if they decide to take it, than there is for the councillors. I'm not sure that that is sufficient to reflect what it is the job truly takes. But I think that this attempt to put forward something that will make a number of people around this table feel heard, listened to, and valued. And I am still considering whether or not it is right to do it all at once, whether it is right to have the mayor's salary capped. But I understand the reasoning. Members of council have showed me their justification, and I would like to listen to anything more that is being said.
Okay, thank you for those words, Councillor Shishak. I don't see anybody else's hands. Oh, it's my turn. I think, sitting here as chair, you guys all made valid points. I've sat with yous quite a long time. I've been at the meetings that is referenced by Councillor Shishak. I've received calls from yous when contentious issues are upon the town, and sometimes I can't get off the phone with you guys for about 3 hours. So there's a lot of time that goes into many things here. But there's not much more I could say. I think all you members of committee, you guys had a wholesome discussion. You guys said your points, and I will just, a lot of my points that I want to say right now are kind of embedded with all your comments. So at this point, if there's somebody else, then, yeah, Councillor, I have Councillor Broderick first, and then.
It's a friendly amendment. I think we need to take into consideration. No, go ahead. It may be what I was.
I'll leave that one up to both of you.
It says that the annual salary of the mayor will be increased, but it doesn't say when it's effective. So.
I thought that the new salary remuneration of members, so council and mayor, as approved, take effect, should say.
Next line, January 1st.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't say and mayor. It says that the salary remuneration.
Oh, it says member of council.
And it's members of council.
Yeah.
Does it cover the mayor?
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
in
covers
the
the mayor.
recommendation that brought us here, it said members of council and not the mayor, and it excluded that, which is why we had the report that came in two pieces. So I
Yeah.
just want to make sure we're talking
Yes.
all of
Yeah.
council for
All of
this
council,
term and
January
any
1st.
term into the future.
So as the clerk has indicated that the word members of council is the whole of council.
Then you don't need an amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you very much, Chair. So I didn't participate in any conversations earlier today, so this is the first that I saw these numbers in regards to the mayor's salary. So through you, Chair, to Councillor Rayner, you had set an amount of $47,000 and change for the mayor's salary, and the spread between the council and the mayor's salary is, did you figure out the percentage difference, or were you looking more at a lump sum amount?
So, Councillor Broderick, I'll just go through myself. Councillor Rayner, is it okay if Councillor Rayner will go to answer that question? Are you okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, well, what I did was initially, the problem has been for the last 30 years, every year, April 1st, we get whatever the union gets for COLA.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you make, the more you take. So that means over the last 30 years, the gap between the councillors and the mayor has continued to grow and escalate. And that turns into thousands of dollars over a 30-year period, where the initial gap was where they were comfortable with, but because the remuneration is based on the percentage and how much you make, that gap continues to separate and become a lot larger the more you make. However, not even taking that into consideration, a report from the Director of Finance last fall said the mayor was making $38,600 and something, I believe, and there was a recommendation of a $3,800 increase, which the mayor at the time turned down. So if you take that 38 and you look at that number, and you look at where we are right now, if she's at 38 and we're at 21 and change, the difference is 17. And that's what the big gap that's accumulated over the 30-year period. What if we leave, and initially I thought, no, let's bring it back down to where it should have been 30 years ago, and I initially was going to go with 42. I said, no, let's leave it the same, and let's do the 17 gap. So if we're going to go to 30, you go to 47. That keeps the gap identical as it was before these increases, but it still exponentially will increase the mayors ahead of us because of the fact that there's 17,000 more getting a COLA every year, has had been the previous mayors over the last 30 years. So I'm still retaining the gap that originally wasn't intended to be that big of a gap. And now it's a bigger gap, but let's leave that gap and let's be consistent. That's why I'm trying to be fair and I changed the number.
Okay, Councillor, you're expanding very in depth right now, so I think
Well, I thought that's what she wanted to understand.
It's okay.
I'm just being consistent from the past to the present.
Was fine.
So my thoughts was that we're talking a dollar figure difference, not a percentage difference.
Correct.
And that's what I would assume had been used or should be used to separate when there is one job has certain responsibilities and another has different responsibilities, and we come up with a percentage difference between the two jobs. And it appears as though that the percentage difference now will have decreased between councillor and mayor. I'm not a mathematical genius, we all know that. However, we're going up and she's not going up that much, so therefore her percentage must have dropped. So I guess.
I think the mayor did mention that she was more comfortable, as your comments were, that you were aware of what the gap was, but is there anything else, Councillor Braddock? Because I do have Councillor.
Really, I don't think I have anything further to say other than pointing this out, that the percentage has now decreased, difference between council and mayor.
Councillor Riley?
All right, thank you. And I don't mean to belabor this. I hear what Councillor Braddock's saying. I think at the same time, I don't think there is that much of a difference considering, from what my calculation is, it's almost close to what council was getting bumped up to the 30 mark, consider where we're going from the 38 to the 46 and a half or 47 or whatever is before us. I think the difference is when we're looking at percentages, I don't know if there is an actual mandate in terms of trying to maintain a certain percentage. I think it's our responsibility to make sure that the job itself is compensated. I also will mention, and I know the mayor wouldn't disagree there, but the mayor's job goes beyond just representing us locally here. It goes to the region, and there is a regional contribution portion, which is somewhere in the upper range of $40,000. So the job itself, as much as there's a responsibility locally, it's kind of like two positions that they manage at the same time. And so when we talk about percentages, that could also misrepresent the realities of what their overall compensation is. They're not just limited to that. You can't do one without the other. So the job itself comes to about, I won't even guesstimate what it is, but if we did the math, you can kind of guess where that would put in the ballpark. So I hear your concerns as far as percentages goes, but if I look at what happened here, we've kind of gone up dollar for dollar. I don't think we're trying to stay within a percentage, because if we're trying to stay within a percentage, then what Councillor Rayner said is correct. Well, then after next year comes and you got the cost of living or whatever else, 2%, well, now you're actually increasing that percentage each year. There's no opportunity to kind of hone it into a certain threshold. So I just want to make a point of just mentioning that. Lastly, if I could just mention one more, Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Chair. Everybody's getting called mayor tonight. Pelham was the one that came to mind when we were talking about, they went in their last election, they had 2 members acclaimed in 2 wards that nobody put their name in.
Yep.
And there was the only mayor's race that had 2 people from the get-go. And so they had to open the door up again, and then the people who ran while the other people got acclaimed. So again, this is much broader topic. At AMO, we heard members of multiple, through all the municipalities in Niagara, there's comments that came up, and our CEO can contest that asked the province, what are they going to do to help people, to help generate public interest in municipal governments again, and that came up through the question and answer period. And in fact, I can quote the individual because he kind of had the room laughing. He identified himself as a first-time councillor and a last-time councillor, and he went on forward to announce the fact that we need support from the government because people are not putting their name forward. We saw the same thing in Lincoln. We got a mayor and a regional councillor that got it claimed. So this is something that we could wait till that moment comes up and not do anything, or we can make our effort here, which I don't think is unrealistic.
So we have some decisions to make. I think I've heard from everybody. Do we still have some more continued comments on it? Like, does anybody, would you like to speak?
I guess I was just going to say that you see why you can't be arbitrary in what you do with salary.
Correct.
Because it looks like you value people differently and their role differently and the amount of time they put in differently. And there is a difference between the mayor's role and our role.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I wouldn't give you two hoots for the change of office this year for all the work that I see our mayor doing as she reignites our community and paying attention to what it is that's going on and how she embraces everyone. Having said that, I see why you can't have a report done internally either, because nobody likes that one either. So to reference it when you're trying to find a base point for the mayor's salary, I think is inappropriate, given that we didn't like what it said about councillors. So I think what I was going to do was wrap the meeting, ask you to wrap it, because we're getting down to picking things apart that we're comparing apples with oranges and oranges with apples. And I think if we're going to be fair, we need to make sure that we have satisfied, and you know what the difference is? Looking at the mayor's versus 2% increases,
Yes.
940 versus 600, and you know what? Every cent belongs to anybody who sits in that chair.
And I agree with you, Councillor Chichuk. I was trying to also wrap.
I know.
You're right. Yeah, you
Sorry.
you saw me that I was trying.
I saw that.
Okay.
But I thought I'd help you. Bye.
So, Councillor Bell?
I'd like to call the vote.
Okay, call the question. That's a good way of putting it. Madam Clerk, Councillor Bell called the question, so I can go ahead. Your screens will pop up.
I wasn't logged in.
Somebody voted for me.
Did you get them all, Madam Clerk, or are you waiting on some? Just two more councillors, we'll wait. Okay. Okay, the vote will come up, and that carries.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good, wholesome,
That was for the amendment.
the amendment, okay, sorry, and then, so we need the motion as amended vote come up, so councillors, please vote one more time as amended.
Makes you have to do it twice.
Oh, sorry, mine's in two screens here. Again, this is as amended. Waiting on Councillor Rayner.
Sorry, I've already done it.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, and that carries. Again, members of committee, good wholesome discussion on that issue. Thank you. Okay, again, so this next item, our Director of Finance does have a prior presentation to be presented to us. Again, any questions, please refer to the chair. Yeah, you can go, and I will start reading this out by the time you get back. You can go to the washroom, Counselor. Go ahead. So again, I lost my train of thought there, got interrupted. The Finance Director does have a quick presentation to go through first. Please, members of council, any questions, please wait till the presenter is completed. We go through, and then please direct them to me, and please be mindful of each other and staff. Thank you. So, Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis, a 2019-23, the recommendation report number T08-2023, the 2023 operating and capital budget final report. A recommendation that T08-2023 regarding the 2023 operating and capital final report dated March 20th, 2023 be received, and that a 2023 tax levy of $8,996,650, which represents a 5.48% tax levy increase after factoring in assessment growth, be approved, and that the 2023 tax levy above be adjusted by based on recommendations approved through the report T05-2023 elected officials remuneration, and that the 2023 tax levy of which includes the amounts approved under recommendation 3 above be approved, and that the 2023 hospital levy of $176,300 for the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital rebuild be approved, and that the 2023 urban service area levy of $188,300 be approved, that the detailed 2023 capital program attached to schedules D and E to this report totaling $5,170,000 be approved, and that council debenture financing of $1.2 million in 2023 in order to finance capital project 1024 paving of Vaughan Road from Caister Gainsborough Town Line Road to Wellandport Road, and that council approve a debenture financing of $1,592,600 in 2023 in order to partially finance the replacement of Fire Station 2, and that council delegate the authority of the CAO to approve in the year 2023 budget amendments up to $20,000 per item, and that the treasurer report to council on a monthly basis regarding such amendments, and that the balance of the capital and special projects of this year, 2024 to 2032, as outlined on Schedules F and G to this report, be approved in principle, and that the tangible capital asset amortization estimated $3,353,612 and post-employment expenses estimated at $3,200 be and are hereby excluded from the 2023 draft operating and capital budget as permitted through the regulation 248-03. So, members of committee, I'd like to first off and thank our Director of Finance for the hard work that she has put in and doing this budget. It is a lot that she's put together and has run the numbers. The breakdown that she's given us at pre-agenda with my colleague Councillor Chichuk has been helpful, and I'm sure it's going to be just as helpful this evening. So I will turn the floor over to Director of Finance for a short presentation. Oh, sorry. I'll need a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor Chichuk and Councillor Rayner will refrain from comments or questions till after the presentation, if possible. Director.
Thank you, Councillor Chairman Trombetta. I just have a short presentation. It should only take about 10 minutes just to highlight some of the changes in this budget. So at the February 21st budget meeting, Council was presented with a budget that included a tax levy of $9,177,730. Council asked staff to come back with a lower tax levy request, which we have. Tonight, Council is presented with a total budget of $20.9 million in operating expenditures and $5.1 million in capital investments, which is supported with a new tax levy of $8,996,650. This does not include the two amendments that were discussed earlier this evening. We can calculate those later. So the presentation will outline how staff was able to find $181,080 in savings to lower the tax levy. The revised tax levy represents an increase of 5.48% after factoring in growth. Now, when we first started this budget a few months ago, that levy increase after growth was 12.91%. It is now 5.48%, so significant changes have been made to get this levy to the rate it's at now. So I'm just going to go over the changes that were made to the February 21st budget, and how the savings of $181,080 was reached. The first item, the implementation of the non-union grid. It has been extended by 1 year, meaning that the impact of the changes will be completely funded by the tax base in 2028, as opposed to 2027, which was originally presented at the February meeting. This will require the use of the contingency reserve to offset the costs not covered through the tax levy. This change has resulted in a decrease to the tax levy of $43,500. Staff reviewed the financing of planning special projects in light of new information garnered through a deeper review of Bill 23 legislative changes. Staff learned that any special projects that are in the current Township Development Charge background study are still eligible to be funded with development charges. Staff were able to refinance 2 projects in the planning area, and that allowed us to decrease the transfer to the planning reserve, which resulted in a savings to the levy of $40,000. A significant grant the township receives for capital is the CCBF, which is the Canada Community Building Fund. The 2022 reporting for this grant was recently completed about 2 weeks ago. After completing that reporting, staff have calculated a larger carry forward of this grant into 2023. This is the result of 2022 projects funded through CCBF incurring costs below the original budget. We were able to refinance capital projects, which allowed us to decrease the transfer to the capital reserve by $35,000, resulting in a decrease to the tax levy of $35,000. Staff have had meetings with the township's group benefits broker, and a full market review is currently taking place to determine if there are lower premium rates available with different providers. This work will not be completed prior to budget approval. In terms of the 2023 budget, staff conducted a second fulsome review of all group benefit calculations. In addition, the numbers were updated with the current outlook for group benefits, being an increase in health premiums of 8% and dental premiums of 20%. This work garnered a reduction in the tax levy of $22,090. The library board had their meeting a few weeks ago to discuss the 2023 budget, and they approved a reduction in their budget of $20,000, which has resulted in a reduction to the overall tax levy. This was accomplished by reducing the transfer to the library reserve by $20,000. The library board also made adjustments to the following 2 projects. The library strategic plan was reduced to $20,000 from $25,000. And the logo and branding project, which is a 2024 project, was reduced to $10,000 from $20,000. The project to Hardtop Vaughan Road was reviewed by our public works staff, and a revised budget of $1.2 million was calculated. This means that the debenture requirement has been reduced by $200,000. The February budget that was presented to council included $132,800 as a transfer to the capital reserve, which represented the cost of repaying this debenture. This amount has been reduced because the project cost has been reduced, the new amount being $113,800, which is a decrease to the tax levy of $19,000. Again, a lot of work was done with reserves to see where they could be reduced. The facility reserve is one reserve that could have room for a reduction. The reduction was $5,000. In addition, Project 1089 Silverdale Hall siding replacement has been moved from 2023 to 2024. Finally, there are 2 areas in operating that have changed since the February 21st meeting. The recreational facilities have a request for HVAC service contract. That initial cost has been reduced by $5,000. On the flip side, the parks operating budget has been increased by $8,500 for a net impact of an increase to the tax levy of $3,510. Now, in reviewing the budget, council's just reminded of a few things. A 1% increase to the tax levy equates to $83,517. In terms of taxes paid, a 1% increase equates to a $14 increase to taxes paid. And just to remind council that assessment is still based on the 2016 assessment study last conducted. We still have not heard when that will change. Perhaps with the provincial budget, there may be an announcement, but the base is 2016 for assessment. So this slide provides council with an estimate of the impact to the average residential homeowner. Final numbers will be presented to council in April once tax policy has been approved by the region. So as it is right now, the 5.48% levy increase equates to about a monthly tax increase of $7.10. Now, the last slides that are in your package are just again outlining the capital and special projects that are included in this budget. Under strong transportation connections, the largest project is the Vaughan Road hardtopping at $1.2 million. The capital budget also includes $1.37 million in road resurfacing projects. These are the projects that align with strategic responsible growth for council to review. Under community health and safety, the largest project in this category is the replacement of the tanker truck at Station 2 at $615,000. Under this category, efficient fiscally responsible operations, this includes many of the annual budgets for small equipment, pools for roads, recreation, and water. It also includes equipment replacement budgets for computers. The township has a regular replacement plan for these assets to ensure that we have equipment in good working order to allow us to provide and maintain services. And finally, we have projects under local attractions. So that is the completion of the presentation, Chairman.
Thank you, Director of Finance, for the presentation. Okay. We had a mover and a seconder, so now I'll turn it to members of committee if any comments or questions on the budget. I'll start to my left first. Councillor Bell. Your microphone, Councillor Bell. And Councillor Broderick, yours I need off if possible. Thank you, Councillor Bell.
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for putting the budget together, and when you're asked to come back with new numbers, you just did. There's a few questions that I do have, a couple of asks that I have, and two things that I do want to see stay in the budget for the fire department. There's two items on there that they're very small, but they need to stay, is for their bunker gear, the cost of $20,000. And the second one is for, I believe, let me just find my notes here. Facility.
Is it in there?
Silverdale. Hang on, I'm getting there.
Which item is it?
Yeah, the bunker gear was one, and it's at a cost of, open this thing up.
So I'm hearing the bunker gear is in there already.
Yeah,
Is that?
it's at 25. I know it's in here, but I don't know whether Tim took it out or not.
No, it's remained in there.
He kept it in here, okay, because I didn't see the original, okay. And also the washing machine for the industrial, he kept it in there?
Yeah,
Okay, because I didn't see it.
yeah. So those are both in there.
That's, I'm good that they kept that because that's critical. I don't really have a whole lot of other things that I'm looking to remove. I think everybody come back with some reasonable numbers of lowering the stuff, and they meant what we asked them. Originally, we had a budget that was over 7%. We asked them to come back between 5 and 5.5, and I think we're there. So at this time, I've got nothing else to ask right now.
Great, thanks, Councillor Bell. Councillor Broderick.
Thank you. Thank you to staff for the fulsome look at our budget and to ensure that we are coming back to our residents with the lesser percentage increase. I did have one question through you, Chair, to the Director DiPaolo in regards to the baseball lights, and I saw that still remained. We had a couple of conversations about that going around this horseshoe the last meeting, so if you could just comment as to why it's still remaining.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Broderick. Yeah, we looked at only doing one diamond with the lights this year and deferring the other diamond to next year and using the parts from the first diamond for the second diamond. We did look at that. We felt it would be a problem when we start renting the facility. We're going to get a lot of complaints from the users, that the new lighting is much, much better, so they're going to always want to rent that diamond, and so it's going to kind of be an administrative nightmare to rent the two facilities. And plus, just delaying one diamond to the following year really doesn't impact the budget. It's either you have to remove the project altogether or defer it beyond the 5-year forecast to really have to really have an impact on it. So yeah, we did look at that, but it was just having one diamond with the improved lighting would just be a problem for the users, and just a service to different type of service levels on two different diamonds. So that's why we kept it in there to do both.
Okay, thank you. Just a comment that Councillor Bell had also mentioned about the bunker washer. I know that it was brought up as, just to gain a little bit of information as the need for it. So doing a little bit of research on the critical need for that kind of equipment for our firefighters. I'm glad to see that stayed on as well, too.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Broderick. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I also wondered about the light situation and how that had played out once that research was done. So thank you, Councillor Broderick, for asking that question, and Director for answering it. That makes perfect sense that it wouldn't work. The other thing, of course, that I asked about that I'm just curious to know how that played out was the Vaughan Road issue, and whether you were able to find out if there would be any savings at all to look at it in its entirety. I'm fine with it the way it is, but I just wonder if you were able to get any further information on that.
Through the chair to Mayor Gannon. Yeah, we figured that. So the first section of Vaughan Road in this year's budget, we were able to reduce the number to 1.2 million. The second section of Vaughan Road for the 2024 budget, we had it at around 800,000. We figured if we were to combine them together all in 1 year, it would probably be a total project cost of about 1.9 million, because there's some economy of scale. It's hard to predict, so a little bit of a savings. I can't remember what the impact was on the debenture, like how we would fund that, so I don't know if Donna would have those numbers readily available, but I would defer to her for that.
So I did look at the report, so I know it wasn't as good as we'd hoped, but Donna maybe has those figures at hand, I'm not sure, but.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Mayor Gannon, it would require a levy increase of 66,500 if you wanted to do both parcels this year.
Thank you. Thank you for checking. I think it's important that before we make a decision, we just sort of look at the entirety of it. So I respect that you did check and that you got an answer, and I'm satisfied with what we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's all your comments. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess to you, to our Director of Finance, thank you. I realize this has got to be a tiresome project from the minute you have to start to the minute we ratify it for you. I guess my question, and I just want to have a rough picture of what this looks like in terms of the blended rate. So between West Lincoln and the region, like what are the residents looking for in terms of a blended rate?
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Riley, would you like that with the 8.9 million, or would you like that with the two amendments that were passed this evening?
The whole, if we can do the whole.
Okay,
there? Yeah.
so I will just, you're going to need this number. So currently, the levy in the report was $8,996,650. Based on the two changes this evening, the increase in hours for the communication and council remuneration, the new levy is $9,081,550. That's a 6.5% increase after growth, and that's all township. When we look at the blended, just hold on.
Oh, it's okay. No worries.
So the blended increase, including the region and the education, and I will say these are estimates because we don't have tax policy yet. It's an increase of 6.24%.
6.24?
No, 6.26%. I need new glasses.
And so, no, that's fine. And so the 6.26, what portion of that is West Lincoln?
Oh, that hasn't changed. Like it's 1/3.
So it'd be 1/3 of it. So of the
Yeah.
blended 6.26, we're looking at basically 2.07-ish.
Well, no, well, you can do a lot with numbers. I want to make it clear that the levy increase for the township, it's 6.5% after growth.
That's
I
the
want that-
township component. yeah.
yes.
And then when we blend it, we have the 6.26, and I think it's important that for transparency, the public understands what portion of the 6.26 actually comes from West Lincoln. Well, I would rather hear the percentage from them.
Is it 2.06?
It's gonna be around there.
Two
but
point-
rather have
I got
it officially on-
2.07.
No, that's fine. I'd rather just have it officially on record.
The township is about 34% of the total tax bill.
Okay, so I could divide 34% in that 6.26, and that would give me approximately what portion belongs to the municipality on the overall blended rate?
I don't think you can do it that way, because these are percentages. You can do that if you ask me the dollar value increase.
Okay.
Then I can tell you what percentage of the
So
dollar
do you
value
wish-
increases. You can't do that with
So
percentages.
Mr. Chair, can I, through you to the Director of Finance, can I have the dollar value increase, please? The breakdown for each? I know they're not, I know some of them still have to be like
Yeah, okay.
finalized, but.
So the estimated total tax bill increase is $291.07.
And that's for all three?
That's for all three. The township portion is estimated at $99.54. That includes the hospital levy.
Okay, so that's basically just under $100 increase over 12 months, so basically
Yeah.
just under, can't do it quick enough, but
Yeah, the regional increase is $191.48. And then the urban service area increase is estimated at 5 cents.
oh, yes, I saw that. I actually was
Yeah.
surprised by that, so that's great. And so, that's great, thank you for those. I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to our Director of Public Works, I was actually gonna ask the question about the LED, and I actually was gonna bring up the fact, I play in a men's softball league, and I was kind of wondering what complications that was going to pose to kind of put that on the back burner, and if it made more sense just to kind of go forward with it, but not hearing that there's no actual real major difference in that, I think it's probably more appropriate just to kind of pursue it as is and ensure that that service remains consistent and doesn't create any potential issues. As far as that goes, I think that's everything I had. Thank you so much for the presentation and for everything else and all the hard work that goes into organizing this and preparing this. And and thank you to members of council for this, collective exchange of communication in terms of how we're going to deal with this for the community. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Councillor Chichuk?
First, Mr. Chair, I'd like to thank you for the way you conducted this whole budget.
Thank you.
It was a joy and a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you.
And, okay, take the smoke out of your head. The man over here says it's what's going to happen. But anyway, aside from that, we did have some humor during this time. But more importantly, I want to thank our treasurer, who has spent extensive amounts of time with both the chair, yourself, and myself. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I would like to extend my greatest appreciation. We had many a chat that went into deep discussion on each of these things that she considered, she and her staff considered. So to Donna, to your staff, to all staff that had to bargain with you for each and every dollar that went into this budget, I can't but help but say, we, as a township, appreciate your efforts and the work you've put into this. Having said that, I'm not going to make anything, because I think I know the answers, and it's not that I didn't have 1,000 questions, as you well know. And to that, what I wanted to say was, since we're getting down to the absolutes of $291.07 being the approximate expected tax increase that someone could see, that is on a house valued at how much? Based on 2016 assessed value? Because I have lots of people who ask me afterwards how it was that the report said $291.07, but I had a $762 tax increase.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, to Councillor Chichok, it's $386,000.
Right.
And I will say it's the average assessment.
Right.
The MPAC is still using 2016, so to put that into context, a house built in 2022 that may have cost $1 million is not assessed at $1 million. It is assessed at what it would have been worth in 2016.
Right. I just don't want to get down to the absolutes, because people look at their tax bill and say, I should get $291. And some people won't, because their house is assessed at much less. But as you say, others will get double and triple that because of what goes on. And then farmers will get a bonus because farmland is assessed differently. So it's just, I caution us to not look for $291. I've been in this game for far too long to have people believe that's what's going to happen. And if next year the province decides to use 2020 numbers, it's a whole new ballgame. To that end, I do have one question, through you, Mr. Chair, about the baseball lights, and that is, will they be properly shrouded? Because probably one of the biggest things I've had to put up with in my life is the light, what do they call it? The light, no, it's the glare, but it is the pollution, the light pollution that happens. It upsets birds. but more importantly, it upsets the neighbors that can't sit on their back porch without a shadow anymore. So just so that we know, these are going to be properly installed with proper lighting specialists.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chichuk, we'll definitely consider that as part of the procurement call to make sure that it's designed accordingly and there's no light reflection and stuff like
And
that.
the birds won't fly north instead of south.
That's right.
Thank you. It's just my history with lights in baseball fields, and I must tell you that I have many sleepless nights as a result of them. Thank you. I really think that I've had the great pleasure of getting every answer to every question I could have possibly asked about this budget well in advance of tonight's meeting, and I can only say that it's been fulsome, it's been transparent, and we have worked together as colleagues trying to get to a solution, which is great, and I thank you again, Donna, and your staff. So that's the extent of my comments and questions.
Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. Councillor Rayner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I, like many of the others around the horseshoe here, were wondering about the Leisureplex and the lights. And the fact that I thought it was a brilliant idea from Councillor Chichuk of doing one and saving the parts from that and doing the other and delaying it. But I also appreciate and understand the reasoning behind not being able to do it. But I've got a kind of an off-wall question to ask. When you do this, you're going to have a lot of those can't be replaced lights available. Is there a market for it in the other municipalities in the province that possibly, instead of scrapping them, obviously there'd be a value, especially if you can't get them and you don't want to go through the expense that we're doing in a smaller municipality? Is there a possibility that there could be some revenue brought back from all these lights that would be available for somebody else who had that similar situation in their park?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Rayner. I don't know the answer to that, but we'll definitely look into that, and that is another good suggestion for us to look into.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know some of the equipment, when we're finished with it, we sell it. We take it to Morston, whatever, and we sell it at the auction there. And I'm thinking the same thing with the lights. It'd be a shame to scrap them. The next question I have would be to the CAO. The hospice situation, have you, first stand corrected, through the chair to the director, is the hospice in the budget?
Yes.
I assume it is.
Yeah, through you, Chairman Trebek, to Councillor Rayner. Yeah, the first year allocation is in the budget, and it's funded through a reserve.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair to the CAO, have we kind of set the precedent in the meetings we had with regards to supporting this under two conditions? Number one, that they elect a member, anybody, resident, councillor, whatever, from the Township of West Lincoln to be on their board. Councillor Riley has admitted a conflict of interest right now because he potentially has an interview for that opportunity. So I think that part is definitely going forward. But have we heard from the Township of Grimsby with regards to the fact that they have put their money forward for their share of this?
Through you, Chair Trumpetta, to Councillor Rayner. My understanding is that this is on their agenda for tomorrow evening. So I don't know what they intend to do and what the outcome will be, but it will be considered.
Okay, so that still leaves this, and I mean, this has been a great evening. I've gone through so many of these, and this has been a very good night. But those are one of the conditions that Grimsby comes through. We've had so many other situations, like I mentioned, with the YMCA, where we funded projects in Grimsby, and we didn't get a fair deal on that. And this situation is based on the fact that Grimsby comes to the table, and if they come to the table to the amount that has been requested, we're going to come to the amount that we've been requested. All's fair in this, but should this stipulation still not be with this budget, that the money going for this still depends on the decision from Grimsby? Madam CEO?
Well, through you, Chair Trumpetta, to Councillor Rayner, that was what committee had asked. And I'm not going to comment on what you want to do going forward.
Through you, I'm all right with supporting this, but on the premise that Grimsby does what they're supposed to do, and unfortunately, the cart's ahead of the horse tonight, and we
So,
don't know where Grimsby sits, but.
Counselor, I think the mayor, because she'd like to speak to just this.
Oh, if I may.
Sure, yeah.
One further thing, we do have council in the week.
That's what I was gonna
It's gonna be
say.
tomorrow, so we will know, hopefully everything will be positive, we'll know by next Monday.
Okay.
Can we just leave that as that
So
for
thank you.
now?
So that's what I was going to say. There was an email this afternoon that came, Councillor, I don't know whether you saw it, indicating that Grimsby tomorrow night is having a meeting, setting up the program that they want. You know, they didn't have any policies for distributing money. And so that is coming to them tomorrow night with the full expectation that once that's in place, because that's what that they were waiting for as well, to have that in place. So, and further to that, I was going to say, by the time we ratify this
Yes.
budget, we will know.
I was going to say that as well. We do have council ahead of us.
Hopefully then Grimsby does come through, because we're committed so long as Grimsby's committed. All is fair in this, and they have a responsibility also. The last thing I got is for the Director of Public Works with regards to Vaughan Road. Thank you for bringing it down a couple $100,000. In the past, a lot of the work on the roads, tar and chipping, a lot of it was done by our own staff. A lot of the gravel was brought in. They rented from Battlefield the rolling machines and everything else. Our staff did all the culverts. A lot of the ditching was done. A lot of it was done in-house. Was that part of how you got that number down? Or is the other thing I'm still comparing it to is concession 5, almost the same length for about 800,000. So we've still got a gap of 400,000. Have you got a comfort zone to justify the 400,000 increase, other than the fact that it's 2 years later?
Yeah, through Councillor Trombetta, through Chair Trombetta, through Councillor Rayner. We were able to review the price, review the quantities and the estimates, and yeah, we were able to bring it down. Why is it much more than concession 5 for the same length? The last meeting, I talked about some of the scope changes, and plus it's just inflation, pricing has gone up. The one thing that I did forget to mention at the last meeting was there is a couple structures like concrete box culverts, and because we're hard topping or tar and chipping a road from gravel to a hard surface, the roadside hazards have increased, so we have to provide guide rail protection, roadside safety protection on these two culvert structures. So that's a big reason why the cost is a lot higher than, you know, the per kilometer cost for concession 5 that was done a few years ago. I forgot to mention that last meeting. I hope that helps.
Yes, that helps. And those were not unique things that were, through you, Mr. Chair, they were not unique things that concession 5 had, is that correct? It was a little smoother, a little easier to do concession 5?
Through the chair to Councillor Rayner, yeah, that's correct. That is correct.
Okay, that makes me feel more comfortable, Mr. Chair, because there is quite a number. Well, it's down a couple 100,000, which makes a difference. But if there's are extenuating things that are different, that add to the cost, that are unique to this particular road, then I can accept that, because that's something that this road has that the other road doesn't. I was just trying to compare apples to apples, and with these changes, we're not really a total comparison. So to me, that's more comfort for my thing. And again, I'd like to thank the Director of Finance and all her staff for all the work that they've done. I know there's a lot of things we brought back to be reviewed, and the numbers did come down considerably. We were very optimistic that this could be done, and as usual, Donna has come through with her staff and have got the numbers that we're much more comfortable with now. And this has been a relatively pleasant go-through. I mean, you could anticipate this to be an ugly night. We could be going possibly for 2 days. We could be going after 11. None of this was necessary, because things were done so well and put in such a way that it was very easy for us to understand. And basically, support was been proposed, and I thank everybody for that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rayner. I'll wrap it up with a few comments. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Director of Finance for her hard work. I mentioned that at the beginning, but I'll mention it at the end, and the thoroughness, the text messages, the calls that she gave to myself and Councillor Chichuk, and working with Councillor Chichuk going through the budget. Our Zoom meetings that we had to get to where we are today is really helpful. So, and our meets and our conversations, which got us to where we are today. Members of staff, Madam CAO, Madam Clerk, members of the staff that's out in the gallery, and the public for your input. Thank you very much. It brings us here to where we are, and, you know, with all, it can't be done without all those pieces. And I think that's very important that we get these budgets done together, and without the pieces of, I guess, staff and we have, and again, CAO and clerk, we can't get to where we are. I also want to thank council. You know, coming into this council first year in this term, you know, the word out there that from the public is that we have a seasoned council coming, and I think that helped in this budget process. Having a veteran council come back does help a lot in coming together and coming together as one in accepting a budget. To see the respect that this council had during this budget process for one another and for staff goes a long way, and I hope to continue it for the next 4 years. So in that, I'll leave it at that. I just wanted to say thank you, and we can put, and one more thing, because I didn't forget, I know Councillor Riley did have a conflict there, so I don't know if that has to be pulled or somehow, Madam Clerk? Yeah. Madam Mayor, did you want to?
Just that, I'm wondering if we can't just pull item 8. Most of what Councillor Riley, I was going to say Councillor Bill. Councillor Riley had in terms of a conflict, they're sort of blended in, except for the one item that's separate is the issue of the road. So I wonder, can we vote on just number 8 separately?
Yep.
And let Councillor Riley...
But he has the library and hospice.
Yeah, so I declared
There's
3
three.
perceived conflicts, so if
So-
we could just vote on those separately, I don't. see
Okay,
an
so
issue
I'll
with that.
just,
Well,
I'll
part of
leave,
the others are blended into the budget, though.
I'll leave it to the clerk to
Okay,
decide
the
how
clerk
she
can
wants to do
figure that
this.
out for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, the first resolution is to deal with the recommendations 2, 3, and 4, where the values have changed.
Your microphone,
Oops, sorry, thank you.
no problem.
Sorry. The first recommendation deals with recommendations 2, 3, and 4. 2, whereby the final budget amount has now changed to, and I believe Donna can correct me, $9,081,550, which represents a 6.5%.
Yes, Madam Director of
So,
Finance?
through you, Chairman Trombetta, that's correct. I recommend that you remove recommendation 3 and 4, because 2 has the number you need. That's my recommendation. Because there was another adjustment made that was not part of this at all, so you'd have to add another recommendation. So I think it's easier just to remove 3 and 4.
Okay. Okay, so we are replacing that, and then I would say the second resolution is that recommendations 3 and 4 be removed from report number RFD 0823.
Okay.
I'll just have to, just give me a second.
I'll let her speak first, and then once she's completed, then we'll ask her any questions. Just not to lose her train of thought, right? Your microphone, Councillor Rayner.
Okay. So the first amendment, there'll be 3 amendments
Yeah.
by the time we're done. So the first amendment is that recommendation 2, as contained in report RFD T08-2023 regarding the 2023 operating capital budget final report, be amended by deleting the following: $8,996,650, which represents a 5.48%, and replacing it with $9,081,550, which represents a 6.5%, and that recommendations 3 and 4, as contained in report RFD -08-2023, be removed.
Okay. Did you want to add something, Councillor Riley?
I do. So through you, Mr. Chair, to our clerk, I believe, and I could be wrong, but I believe because if I were to vote on number 2, then I would be indirectly voting I would be in my conflict. I feel like you need to have those individually, so then I can support number 2 once the will of council has made a decision. So it'd be supported, kind of like what we do with our confirmation of minutes. We can support it because it was based on what was made, so if you have a conflict. So I think we have to vote on those separately first, and then we can come back to the whole as amended.
Okay.
Okay, so the, the second amendment is to extract Councillor Riley's conflict of interest as it relates to item, recommendation 8 of this report, which reads as follows, that due to the conflict of interest declared by Councillor Riley, that recommended 8 be voted separately, which reads as follows. 8, that council approved debenture financing of $1,200,000 in 2023 in order to finance the capital project 1024, paving of Vaughan Road from Caister Gainsborough Town Line Road to Wellandport Road. If that's okay, then we just need to
I think
move
we have
it
just a
separate.
comment from Councillor Chichuk.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Chichuk.
I'm only doing this because I've spent so much time with the treasurer, but I would think that the total levy has the repayment of the first year's debenture and interest for the road, and that the library budget is included in that amount. So if you take, and I'm not telling you what to do, but it would seem that if we voted on recommendation 2, excluding the impact of the road repayment and the library budget, that Councillor Riley would then be safe, if that's what he's looking for. And I say that only in friendship.
I would assume so, like I go by
There
the
is
direction of
there is
clerk.
another amendment,
Okay.
which deals with the library budget and deals with the McNally House Hospice, so there is another one to come.
Okay. So when we vote on this, is it, Councillor Riley can vote on it the way it stands, or?
Once he cannot vote on this resolution that I've
Okay.
just read, which is number 8.
Yeah.
So that declares that's your conflict of interest. And the next resolution, which will deal with McNally House and the library budget.
So we all vote, Councillor Riley
yes.
extracts.
And then you can vote on the original and
That's all,
the,
just for members of committee to, yeah.
so I need a mover and seconder.
So I need a
for
mover
the
to
first-
accept the budget,
Number 8.
Number 8.
Which is extracted.
which is extracted. Madam Mayor, Councillor Bradrick, comments or questions? Actually, can I change Madam Mayor and put Councillor Chichuk, because isn't 8 with Vaughan, it's in their ward, so I think it's fitting that, and I noticed, because she had her hand up, and my head's to the left because I'm looking at the clerk, but I think it's fitting because it is their ward, and if you don't mind, Madam Mayor? Okay. Yes. So I think it's important to some councillors, and I remember last time I wanted to be the mover and seconder when it was in our ward, so if you don't mind. Thank you. So moved by Councillor
Chichuk.
Bradrick and
Oh.
Councillor Chichuk.
Okay, I have it moved by Councillor
Okay, that's fine.
Chichuk.
Yeah, Councillor Chichuk and Councillor Bradrick. And seconded by Councillor Bradrick, that's fine. Is that okay, Councillor Bradrick? Okay.
So mine is giving me a vote option, but I think you need to click the.
Oh, sorry, yeah, it's, yeah, I'm sorry, conflict, yeah. There we go.
Missing anybody?
And, sorry,
I don't think so.
close.
Okay, and that is carried, and please note that Councillor Riley abstracted from voting due to a conflict.
Okay, the, I can read the next
Yep, go ahead,
extraction.
Abstraction, yep.
So the next extraction is the other conflict of interest that Councillor Riley has put forward. This is with respect to the West Lincoln Public Library budget and the McNally House Hospice financial requests. The resolution reads that the following identified items / projects be extracted from the proposed 2023 budget and voted on separately due to a declared conflict of interest, pecuniary interest. 1, West Lincoln Public Library budget. 2, McNally House Hospice financial request.
Okay. And you guys should see the
I need a mover.
move. I need a mover for that. Councillor Bell, Councillor Rayner. And you guys will see the screen pop up from you. No questions or comments, I'm assuming, so you'll see the screen pop up.
And, sorry, Councillor Riley, I'll put your conflict in.
Okay, and that is carried, and please also note that Councillor Riley is distracted from voting due to conflict.
Okay, back to the amendment with respect to recommendation 2. So the recommendation states that recommendation 2, as contained in report RFDT 08-2023, regarding the 2023 operating capital budget final report, be amended by deleting the following: 8,996,650, which represents a 5.48%, and replacing it with 9,081,550, which represents a 6.5%, and that recommendations 3 and 4, as contained in report RFD 08-2023, be removed.
So I need a mover for that. Councillor Rayner, seconded by Councillor Chichuk. And your screen, and I'm sure no comments or questions, so your screen will pop up for you to vote.
So I can vote on this, right?
Yes. And that's closed.
And that's carried unanimously.
And then the original motion.
Okay, and the original motion as amended.
As amended.
I need a mover for that. Councillor
Nope.
Rayner?
But we
sorry.
had,
Oh,
sorry.
you had one for that?
Yeah,
Sorry.
that was originally done right at the
Originally?
beginning, which was moved by Councillor Chichuk and seconded by Councillor Rayner.
Okay, so that originally? So, and your pleasure on the motion?
Sorry, number 8 will be out of there.
Yep.
I have to go in and.
We already voted on
Yeah,
that separately,
I
so that's
just-
fine.
It just is showing up on the screen, but it will be
Is everybody?
struck through. Yes, sorry.
Okay. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, members of the committee. Okay. Well done. Good wholesome discussion. Not going to stay to the end, Albert? Anyways, moving on to other business. Madam CAO, employee professional accomplishments. We have Jessica Dyson, Deputy Clerk, completion of employment law and human resources program. Madam CAO.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair Trombetta. Jessica Dyson, our Deputy Clerk, continues to be doing a lot of extracurricular training and development, and she just passed the last 2 courses, which were Employment Law and the Human Resource Program, and these are through the AMCTO certification program. So again, we're incredibly proud of her. She's doing a great job. She's getting excellent marks, and we look forward to what she's going to do next.
Okay.
Thanks.
Excellent. It's a good accomplishment. Item A21-23, members of committee verbal updates of members of boards or committees if required. Members of committee, nothing. So moving on, members of council, any other business of an informative nature? Anybody would like to comment on anything? Yeah.
But meaning like, but this is not council. Why is this in twice?
We always do it's always committee first, and council's always been like that. It's always been like that, but members of council, any comments about anything interesting lately? Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Interesting for sure. I just want to say that today we did get the flag up
There
for Meals on Wheels. But more importantly, I really want to commend the volunteer that took me on a ride along today. She was wonderful with each of the residents that we took meals to. So I think as well as them getting their meals, they have a lovely visit with somebody, and for some of them, it's the only visit, the only person that they see. And it was such a pleasure. It really was. And I really think, her name was Bonnie. I don't know her last name, but Bonnie is an amazing volunteer and has been for the last 7 years with that service. So it was really a delight. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else, anything? Nobody? I just had one thing. I wanted to say in Public Works, but I didn't. I just want to thank the Public Works Department as we are pretty much almost completed our snow season. Good job of cleaning snow, and then we're heading into our pothole season. So we'll be on to that next round. So, but again, I want to thank you, Director, for, keeping and let the guys know at the yard that, snow is, I think, is done for now, and kept the roads, we hope, I'm hoping. I'm looking at the forecast, the long range looks like, today's the first day of spring. I could say it today. Today is the first day of spring, so I could say it today, but thank you for keeping the roads open and through the storms that we did have this winter season. So let the guys know at the yard that on behalf of this member of this council, thank you. Yeah. Guys and gals here, thank you. So other than that, there's no new items of business, we have no confidential matters, and we don't need a second meeting for budget. So thank you, everybody, and I'll adjourn this meeting at 9:42.